Hi, my name is Hannah, and I'm going to talk about how my life changed on the anniversary of my wedding. On the outside, my life with my husband Adam in a small flat in the 15th arrondissement of Paris looked great. But things were very different in real life. Adam and I had met 2 years before at an opening at the art gallery where I worked. His charm and care made our first few months together seem like a dream, but things started to go wrong little by little. The way Adam talked to me had changed. He was less friendly and sometimes even mean. I constantly avoided saying or doing anything that could anger him. When Adam told me I wanted to do something special for our anniversary, I had a moment of hope that maybe everything wasn't lost, and he was really to help us get back together. He suggested a romantic getaway near the Harrison Waterfalls in the Jura. We had one of the best first dates of our lives. On the day we left, early in the morning, we hit the road. The car was weird. Adam appeared frightened, yet there was a look in his eyes that alarmed me. He glanced in my direction while driving, but remained silent. When it got too quiet, During the ride, I turned up the radio and thought about our past. I reflected on the enjoyable moments we shared and how circumstances had deteriorated. I wasn't sure if this weekend would really make a difference, or if it was just a last-ditch effort on my part. Hold on to something that no longer exists. After driving for hours, we finally got to the small town. Manette-Truy-en-Joux is located near the waterfalls. Adam left his car in the parking lot was located near the trail that led to the waterfalls. The area was remote and surrounded by a dense forest of fir trees. The beech trees, fresh air, and smell of nature made me think of our first stay here. Shall we take a moment to remember that? Adam suggested a walk, and I agreed with a smile I hadn't seen in a long time. We walked along the trail, hoping that this time together would bring us closer. The sound of the water intensified as we approached the waterfalls. The scenery was beautiful in the sun. Despite the sound resonating through the woods and reflecting off the clear water, I still couldn't fully relax. I felt bad about Adam's behavior, but I couldn't pinpoint the reason. As we approached the boundary, Adam stopped and looked at me. Adam's expression had changed. It was no longer the same. It wasn't the warm smile he had been wearing before. It was a look I hadn't seen him make before. His eyes were almost cold. His voice was different from mine, but he said to Hannah, "You know, I've been thinking a lot." The other day, my heart sank. I knew something was wrong, but I wasn't ready for what happened next. I can't go. He continued to live this life and maintain his marriage. It's not what I want. Adam, what are you talking about? I had assumed that our purpose was also to provide solutions. The cold laugh he let out made my blood run cold. Make things right. No, Hannah, I came here to end things. Before I could say anything, I felt his hands on me. Push me hard. I knew what was going on in an instant, but it was too late. I fell backwards toward the last sound I heard before my body went limp was into the rough water below. "Hit the cold water," Adam's voice yelled. After a year of imprisonment, he was finally free. The shock of the cold water hit him. The current was so powerful that it left me breathless and flung me around wildly. As I fought to the surface, my lungs burned from needing air. When I finally took a breath, a wave swept me underwater once more, tossing me around for an eternity. Rushing waves I couldn't get back in control. Panic was on the verge of taking over. In the middle of all the chaos, I remembered my dad showing me how to swim in the lake near where we grew up. He told Hannah, "Don't be afraid of the water, Anise. Let it carry you. Take deep breaths and let your body float." This memory helped me calm down. I focused on my breathing and let the current carry me instead of fighting it. Gradually, I managed to relax. Moving toward the river's edge, it felt like a long time before my feet finally hit the rocky bottom. I pulled myself up onto the bank, worn out and hurt. My clothes were wet. I was badly hurt, with cuts and bruises all over my body, and I fell to the ground, gasping. As I took a deep breath, my heart was still racing. The truth of what had just happened hit me hard. Adam was my husband, and the man I loved. Love had tried to kill me. It wasn't a mistake or a moment of madness. It was I started to cry in a planned, deliberate way, and the tears mixed with river water still running down my face. The pain I was feeling was nothing compared to the pain I was feeling inside. I couldn't perceive anything externally. How could I have been so blind? The evil that resided in the man I shared my life with began to manifest in the midst of the pain. There was a burning anger inside me that slowly ate away at the sadness, and Adam was scared and thought he had killed me. But I was still living. The thought made me more determined than ever. I fought to get up, and every step hurt. Because it made me think of my fall, I had to move quickly, and Adam would confirm that. He was right. I couldn't stay here in pain, so I got up and walked along. I needed to get help, but I also had to consider my options. I needed help, but I also needed to consider my options. Hannah, the gentle and submissive woman Adam knew, had died. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but one thing was for sure. That fall, someone new took his place. Someone who would never allow himself to suffer abuse again. The thought of leaving Adam was running through my mind as I walked through the forest. He was sure that his plan would work because it was the only way to get ahead. That I didn't have any money or a phone on me, but I headed towards the distant sound of a car, trying to find my way. After a short walk, I finally saw a small country road through the trees. This was my opportunity, so I took it. I went into the bush and stood by the side of the road, hoping that a car would soon pass by. I didn't have to wait long for an old Pujo to come along. As he came around a bend, I waved wildly, and to my surprise, the car stopped. About 50 people came out looking worried. "Madam, are you okay? Did you have an accident?" I quickly chose not to tell him everything, so yes, I did slip near the waterfall. I need help, please. The man named Jean-Pierre did not respond. Without a second thought, he helped me get into his car and drove me to the closest village Mares. Adam, before calling the police, I had to decide, would easily have the upper hand, so I had to disappear completely first even though Mors Jean-Pierre insisted on taking me to the hospital, I kindly said no. He left me outside of a small cafe in the city center, telling me I was okay and just needed to call my family, giving me money so I could buy food and drinks, HKE. I took a big breath and walked into the cafe. This is when it really began. When I asked to use their phone, I knew there was only one person I could call, a friend I could trust. As I answered, a profound sense of relief washed over me. "Clara, it's Hannah. I need your help. Please refrain from asking any questions at this time. I need help. Could you come pick me up? Maury's in the Jura. I'll tell you everything, but you need to know right away because it's life or death there." There was a pause on the other end, and then Clara said, "I'm coming. Text me." I knew the exact address and would be there in a few hours when I hung up the phone for the first time. Since my fall, I have been filled with hope that this is just the beginning. I was sure Adam wanted to kill me. However, he failed, and now it was my turn to take the initiative. Every bump in the road hurt like it was the day I fell in Harrison. More than the bodily pain, it was Ad's betrayal that hurt me the most. How could the man I loved betray me? I had loved the person I had given my life to do this to me while I sat on a bench in front of the cafe. After Jean-Pierre dropped me off, I couldn't wait to see Clara. The sun was setting, making the sky look pink. As shades of orange went by, they looked at me with interest. No doubt interested in me after what seemed like an age, I finally saw Clara's little red dress. I looked messy, and my clothes were still wet. My friend rushed out of the cafe and parked Cleo in front of it. She looked around the street. "Hannah, my God! What happened when she saw me?" yelled and ran toward me. I struggled to stand up and greet him, gasping from the shock. In my pain, Clara took me in her arms and was careful not to hurt me more. I asked Clara, "Can we go somewhere to talk?" And she said, "Sure." We booked a place at a small hotel not far from here, where it will be quiet. There was a lot of quiet on the way to the hotel. I could feel Clara's worried eyes on me, but she let me have silence. Once I got to my room, I was calm and sat down on the bed, tired. Clara joined me. As soon as I was ready to talk, I took a deep breath and started to speak. The words came out like a flood. Unstoppable. I confided in him that my relationship with Adam was gradually deteriorating due to his increasing aloofness. In an act of cruelty, I recounted to him the fateful day we embarked on our romantic vacation, which turned into a nightmare. As I talked, I saw Clara's face change from shock to fear to anger at that jerk. She growled through her teeth, "Nathan, you need to call the cops." I shook my head. "No, not yet. Adam thinks I'm dead, which works in our favor." "What do you mean?" Clara questioned me as I stood up and began to pace. I walked around the small room while ignoring the pain that was spreading through my body. "If we go to the police now, that's my word," I said. "He will counter with, 'It was just a mistake that I slipped.' But who will believe him? They think that the grieving husband or wife came back from the dead." Clara frowned. "But you can't." "Let him get away with it?" "I'm not going to let him get away with it," I answered, my resolve stronger than ever. "Voice, but I want to do it right. I want him to be held accountable for his actions." I need proof that I stopped walking and looked Clara in the eyes. "Thanks for your help, Clara. I need to escape for a while. Adam shouldn't know I'm gone. I will do everything within my power to oppose him while he remains alive." Clara looked at me for a long time and then nodded. "Okay, what should I do?" Having Clara with me made me feel better. "First, I need a place to stay that Adam will never find." Clara thought for a moment. "Town and oven. She doesn't use it very often, but I'm sure she'll let me borrow it." I thanked you and informed her that I would explain your need for a quiet place to alleviate stress. "Okay, I need you to collect a few items from my apartment, including clothes, my laptop, and some important documents. However, you must remain silent, as Adam is unlikely to believe that Clara has stolen anything. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. We'll make him pay, Hannah. I was unable to fall asleep that night in the hotel bed due to my preoccupation with. I saw Adam's face again as my mind kept going over what happened that day. Cold eyes when he pushed me. How could I have been so blind as to miss the darkness behind him? No matter my feelings, I knew I couldn't be the same woman. Hannah, who was young and innocent, died in the rough water of the Harrison Falls. In her place, the next morning, Clara and I set out to overcome the larger, more determined woman. It was a long, quiet trip, and I looked out the window at the scenery and tried to concentrate. I was thinking about the life that lay ahead of me and how I would fix everything Adam had broken in Clara's aunt's house. It was located in St. Nectar, a small town in the heart of the Oven Volcano Regional Natural Park. There was an old stone house with blue shutters and a slate roof. The scene was beautiful and unlike anything I had ever seen before. Clara told me as she gave me the keys, "This is where you can rebuild yourself. No one will come." I gave her a big hug and thanked her for everything she did for me. "Claire, thank you so much. I don't know what I'd do without you. Hannah, you're stronger than you think. You'll get through this. I know this for sure." After Clara left, I was by myself in this strange house. The silence was unbearable. It was the first time since my fall that I truly let myself go. For my lost life and false love, I cried. Despite my broken faith, as I cried, I sensed a growing sensation inside me, resolve and will. Adam may have tried to kill me, but he failed. I was still here, ready to fight. The next few days were difficult for everyone. Any sudden sound or movement made me jump, but only a little at a time. I slowly got back in charge, and I spent my days making plans and thinking about what I would do next. Step 3. Clara delivered my computer and other items from the apartment. She told me that Adam had reported me. The thought of missing the police filled me with nausea, perfectly embodying the role of a worried husband. I knew I had to do it. It would be best for me to stay calm and patient. I began gathering evidence and conducting a thorough search. I looked through my emails and messages for anything that might show Adam's real nature. I found pictures of bruises that he had caused. had given me and that I had kept secret out of shame. I made a list of all the times he embarrassed me in public while pretending to be someone else. Every day that went by, his mean jokes made me more determined to not be my name was Survivor, and I was going to make Adam pay for what he had done to me one morning while I was eating. While sipping coffee on the house's small terrace, an idea struck me. Adam thought he killed me, but he didn't know I was still alive. Planning how to bring him down made me smile for the first time in weeks. I pulled out my phone and called Clara. I told her I needed help getting in touch with a lawyer who specialized in what I needed. "Gee, in cases of domestic abuse, are you sure?" Clara asked, shocked by my answer. With a more determined tone than ever, I told him it was time to act, which Adam thinks is W. But the game has only just begun, I thought. As soon as I hung up the phone, I felt electric. Fear was still present in me, but it was no longer in control. I was ready to let go. That night, I sat down at my computer and began writing my story. I was ready for what was going to happen. As I typed every word, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I told them about the start of our relationship, the slow slide into hell in the relationship, the psychological abuse, and finally, this attempted murder that looked like an accident hurt. But it was also, I felt free for the first time, because I could see clearly what I had been through. I also realized that, despite everything, I remained here, having persevered through the struggle for survival. I felt truly alive for the first time in a long time. Adam had wanted to. He tried to quiet me, but failed. Now it was my turn to talk. Days went by. I slowly woke up with the same feeling every morning in the little house of Saint Nectar. I was sure I had to wait to make Adam pay for his wrongdoing. I had to be careful not to make any mistakes while drinking coffee on the terrace one morning. As I watched the sun rise over the mountains of Oasis, my phone rang. It was Clara. "Hannah, I have excellent news for you. I found a lawyer who is willing to talk to you. Focuses on cases of domestic abuse." My heart skipped a beat. I knew it was this is the first real step towards getting back at her. "It's great, Clara. When can I see it? Can I meet you next week in Claremont? Are you ready?" I took a deep breath. Yes, I'm ready to act. When I hung up the phone, I went to work. I had a week to get ready for my case. I put together all the proof I had against Adam. I spent the next few days organizing it. Through emails, texts, and photos, I discovered items that brought back terrible memories. However, I remained unaffected. Each piece of evidence served as an additional tool in my arsenal on the day of the meeting. When the lawyer finally showed up, I went to Clermont-Ferrand with my heart racing. Metra met me at the office, which was located in an old building in the middle of the city. DuPont, a man of about 50 years old with a friendly face, said, "Miss Leroy, please shake my hand. I apologize for your experience and promise to make things right." Over the next few hours, I told him everything. My voice shook a few times, but I didn't let it. I was so upset that I showed him the proof I had gathered, photos of my injuries and threatening texts. Adam told me about the frustrated outbursts of friends who had seen them happen. Maître Dupont listened carefully and took notes. When I finished my notes, he looked me directly in the eyes. "Miss Leroy, you have a strong case, but I must warn you that it won't be easy. Your husband will probably lie about everything, and he'll say that your absence was an accident, that he thought you were dead." I agreed. I understand. That's why I need your help. I want him to pay for what he did, but I want to do it the right way, says the lawyer. This is exactly the right way to think about things. Here's my suggestion. Let's construct a specific case. Once we have all the proof and potential witnesses, we will file a murder attempt charge. Having someone else say what I went through made my heart sink. This approach made everything seem more real. "What's next?" I asked. "Then we'll let justice do its work." "Work? But I have to tell you it will take time. Are you ready?" I take a deep breath. Yes, I'm ready. I want justice no matter how long it takes. At Maître Dupont's office, I was worn out and full of hope at the same time. I felt like I was really progressing after my fall in the Harrison Waterfalls. When I got back to St. I, work for renewed energy, and Mr. Dupont gave me a list of things to do. Further evidence can be gathered by speaking with Adam's former co-workers or friends who could provide insight into his behavior, as well as by locating his medical records. Because of my past problems, I spent hours every day on the phone or using my computer. I called old friends, neighbors, and even Adam's family members, who witnessed his actions. Some refused to assist me out of fear of becoming involved, while others expressed relief at his departure. Finally, one night, while working late on my file, I was able to talk. Got a message from Clara. Adam is beginning to ask questions. He called. I wanted to check with my parents to see if they had received a message. Be careful. This message made my Adam was beginning to think I needed to be even more careful. My blood was running cold. So my contacts only go out when necessary. I limited them. As the days went by, the little house in St. Nectar turned into my fortress. As it grew, I felt like I was going over all the bad parts of my marriage again. But each piece of evidence I gathered, strengthened me and brought me one step closer to freedom. One morning, as I worked on my computer, I had an idea. What if I could get Adam to confess? What if I could get him to say what he did? What he did would serve as the most compelling evidence, the decisive factor in my favor. I called him right away. Maître Dupont is about my idea. At first, he didn't want to hear it because it's risky. That could be problematic, Miss Leroy, if your husband discovers that you're still living before we're prepared. I didn't want that to happen. I want to give up on this idea. I know there are risks, Master, but what about if we receive even a partial confession, the entire process would be altered. The plan we came up with after a long talk was that I wouldn't talk to Adam directly, but we would try to. We planned to create the impression that someone was familiar with my case, with the intention of putting him in danger. The next few weeks were very busy with disappearances. With the help of Maître Dupont and a few trusted friends, despite our carefully crafted plan, rumors began to circulate in our former Paris neighborhood, claiming that witnesses had seen me. I continued to work on my case every day until the day I went missing. It led to some painful findings. I found pictures of the two of us laughing and having a wonderful time. Thoughts of the woman I used to be, who believed in Adam's love but didn't let herself, tore at my heart. These memories didn't bring me down. Instead, they made me more determined to not just for myself, but for all the women who, like me, were stuck in a bad relationship one night, As I read my file a fourth time, my phone rang. It was Maître Dupont, Miss. Leroy, we have news for you. Adam fell for our trick and called one of our fake witnesses. We attempted to calm him down by recording everything. My heart started to beat fast. We wanted Adam to make a mistake, and we planned to capitalize on it. What do we do now? I was so excited that my voice was shaking. Now we're going on the attack. It's time to file a formal, say something bad. Are you ready? I took a deep breath. It was finally time. I had been waiting months for the day I could finally face Adam without feeling like a victim. Because I was a survivor eager to get justice, I said, "Yes, I'm ready." Firm voice. As I hung up the phone, I noticed the sun descending over the sky. It marked the conclusion of an era. The sky was red and gold from the oven's vents, but it was also the start of a new one. I had made it through the fall, the bruises, and the loneliness, and fear. It was time for me to regain control over my life, so I took action. I was sitting on the terrace, enjoying the cool air of the evening. Tomorrow would be the start of a new chapter in my life. Adam had wanted me to stop being a victim and take charge of my own life. But he failed. Now it was my turn to speak out and tell everyone the truth. It was getting dark on St. Nectar, but for me, it was the start of and I was ready to face it no matter what. It was a new day, a day of justice and truth. The day finally came after months of careful planning and study. gathering proof I planned to fight Adam when I returned to Paris. I stood in front of the mirror, in the small bathroom of St. Nectar's house. Looking at my mirror, I saw a woman who looked both familiar and strange. My hair had grown, I had lost weight, and my eyes showed a drive I hadn't seen before. I was no longer the Hannah Adam had attempted to destroy. I was someone else. Clara, who was larger than me, was waiting for me in the car, insisting that she would accompany me. I went to Paris because they wouldn't let me endure this torture alone. When we left St. Nectar, I took one final look at the small house that had served as my safe haven over the past few months. It was a place where I found peace and tranquility, strength to fight. The trip to Paris was long, and Clara respected my privacy. I mentally went over our plan to calm down and prepare for what was coming. I had been building with Maître Dupont, and everything needed to go perfectly. As we got closer to the city, my heart started to beat faster. My heart beat faster as I saw the familiar streets that brought back memories that I tried to hide. I remembered the park where Adam and I used to have our Sunday breakfast, and the cafe where I used to eat breakfast with him. Each place where they had first kissed was filled with mixed feelings, such as nostalgia and anger. Clara parked in. "Are you ready?" she asked him in front of the building where Maître Dupont worked. I slowly took a deep breath and got ready to go to the lawyer's office. The atmosphere was tense, and Maître Dupont provided us with a final update on the operations. Adam doesn't. "We know you're still alive, Miss Leroy. First, we'll make the official complaint. That's where you come in. We'll call him in for questioning." I nodded, feeling I'm getting pumped up with fear. What if he denies everything? Master Dupont smiles. "That's where our proof comes in. We have a strong case, and the recording of his attempted witness helps us believe it. Bribery. We have what it takes to catch him." The next few hours went by in a blur. I signed papers, answered questions, and confirmed specifics. Everything seemed to be in order. It felt unreal, as if I was observing my life unfold from a distance. Adam had received a call from the police station, signaling my departure. This was the moment I both feared and waited for. Clara walked with me to the police station's front door and gave me a hug. "Hannah, you are the bravest person I know. You will make it." I thanked her with a shaky smile. I entered the building where Maître Dupont was waiting for me. He directed me to a small waiting room, instructing me to remain there until someone arrived to collect my minutes. Went by slowly. I heard words but couldn't make them out. I heard footsteps in the hallway. My heart was beating so fast, I thought it would suddenly burst out of my chest. I heard Adam's angry voice, demanding to know what was going on. My body immediately tightened upon hearing his call, a surge of fear coursing through me, yet I compelled myself to continue. I took a deep breath and thought about everything I had been through to get to this point. Suddenly, the door opened and a police officer walked in. The officer came in and said, "Miss Leroy, it's time for me to stand up." Maître Dupont's legs were shaking. He joined me and placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Are you ready?" I asked. We entered the questioning room where Adam was sitting, but he was unable to speak. When the door shut behind us, he turned around and faced two police officers. When we gazed at each other, time appeared to pause, revealing a multitude of diverse emotions. I saw shock, denial, fear, and finally cold anger on his face, and only Hannah knew me too well. His voice was barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath. Take a deep breath and say hello to Adam. The cops started to ask questions, but I couldn't hear anything. All I could see was Adam, the man I liked. He tried to kill me, but he didn't seem as scary as I remembered him being. I could barely make out the officers' questions as they asked Adam to describe what had happened. On the anniversary of our wedding, Adam Bite was caught lying. I could see it. When it was my turn to speak, fear filled his eyes. At first, my voice was shaky, but as I told her my story, she pushed me to talk about how our marriage was falling apart, psychological abuse, and finally, From that terrible day to the cascades of the hedgehog, Adam tried to cut him off to say, but the pictures of my injuries, the stories of our friends and neighbors, and, most of all, in the recording of his attempt to bribe a witness during the interrogation, I saw Adam remove his perfect mask, finally showed what a mean person his husband really was when he crashed. During questioning, Adam said, Okay, he yelled. I tried to kill her. Going to leave me and ruin everything. The room went silent, and I could feel tears running down my face. For the first time in a long time, they shed tears of joy as they watched the police place Adam in jail. He looked at me one last time while I was in handcuffs and said, Hannah, I'm sorry. But I didn't see any regret in his eyes. I only saw anger at being caught. When they took him away, he was sitting and couldn't move. Maître Dupont put his hand on my shoulder and said, It's over, Madame Leroy. You did it. I left the police station with the impression that Clara was waiting for me outside her house, as if it were a dream. She ran up to me, her eyes full of worry, and grabbed me. Hannah, how did it go? I shed tears in my friend's room because I couldn't hold them back any longer. Arms, letting go of all the stress, fear, and pain that's built up over the past few months. I muttered between sobs, Over. He said it, and Clara gave me a stronger hug. Hannah, you are so strong. That night, we stayed with Clara, and I did not engage in any activities. I was ready to go back to the apartment I shared with Adam. As I lay in bed with friends, I thought about everything that I had lived through it, faced my fears, and talked to Adam. That I won. The road was long and painful, but I made it to the end. I felt strange when I woke up this morning. For the first time in months, I felt free. Adam could no longer hurt me because he knew what he did would cost him. He offered to accompany me to the apartment to retrieve my belongings. After considering it for some time, I realized that I had to take action. When we got to the building, my niece Siri turned the page. I could feel my heart racing because this place brought back so many memories, both positive and bad, but I was determined not to. The silence struck me as soon as I walked into the room. It seemed like time had stopped because everything was the same as it was the day I left for Hedgehog Falls. Slowly, I went through the pieces, putting my things back together. Each thing reminded me of something. They remind me of a time in my life with Adam, but instead of making me feel bad, they make me happy. Now seemed far away, like they were from a different life. As I stepped out of the apartment, I felt a sense of lightness and clarity. I left things behind, but also the weight of my past on the ground. When I looked at the building one last time, I whispered, Goodbye. I bid farewell not only to a location, but also to a segment of my existence. Clara took my hand. You want to go now? I smile. It's the first time in a long time that I really feel this way. I don't know what I hope for the future yet, but I'm ready to start a new life. As we moved away, I felt grateful for my friend who assisted me in learning DuPont. Thank you to everyone who helped me get through this. I had lived, I had won, and now I was ready to live. The sun was shining in Paris, and I felt truly alive for the first time in a long time. The future looked bright. It wasn't sure, but it was mine, and it was the most beautiful victory I experienced a wide range of emotions and engaged in a wide range of activities in the days following Adam's arrest. I was going back and forth between Maître Dupont's office and the police station to answer questions and sign papers. Even though I was tired, I felt stronger than ever whenever I tried to make sense of everything that was going on. I wasn't sure I remembered the exact moment Adam told me about this memory, even though pain made me remember why I was fighting when I had my coffee in the morning. My phone rang at Clara's flat. It was Master Dupont and Madame Leroy. He said she was there. I informed them, my voice brimming with excitement, that the prosecutor had decided to continue Adam's attempted murder trial. The trial on violence against women will take place in 3 months. My heart skips a beat, both scary and freeing. For 3 months, I persistently attempted to blend in with the group. At Maître Dupont, the rest of us responded, What should I do by then? I have a wonderful file, but there's one more thing I'd like to share with you. A number of writers have heard of you. I have a story to share and would like to discuss it with you. It would be a chance to raise awareness about domestic abuse. Think you were quiet while considering this idea? It scared me to think about telling everyone about what happened to me, but at the same time, I thought of all the women. Who could be in the same situation as me? Okay, I finally said I'd do it if the next few weeks were very busy and I did a lot of interviews. If my story can help even one person, it will have been worth it. It was hard to repeat my story, but I felt it was important. I saw strength in the eyes of reporters and fans, along with pain, compassion, and sometimes even this is an honor of those who had lived through Simsar events. One day, as I was leaving an interview for a great female magazine, I received a text message from an unfamiliar number, and upon reading it, my heart ceased to beat. Do you think you'll get away with that? It's not over, Hannah. My hands were shaking as I showed Clara, who had come with me to the interview, the message. It's Adam, I said in a shaking voice. He has this number. He should be in pre-trial confinement right now. Clara. She gently took her phone and immediately called Master DuPont. The next few hours were a nightmare because the cops were everywhere. We were informed, my phone was examined, and extra security was implemented around me, but the damage had already occurred. The fear I had managed to overcome had returned, and that night I was unable to sleep due to the tightness in my throat. I got up and turned on my computer. I then began to write, letting my feelings and thoughts flow onto the screen. With those words, I felt stronger in my resolve. Adam wanted to scare me in. I told him to shut up, but I wouldn't let him. The next morning, I called Metra. I told DuPont, I want to do more. I want to start an organization to help. I want my story to help people who have been victims of domestic abuse in a bigger way. After a brief pause, Maître DuPont told Medel Leroy, That's a fantastic idea. I know a few people who would love to help. There were people who could assist you in setting this up. The weeks that followed were busy with a lot of movement between the A's. I was getting ready for the hearing and setting up the association. I barely had time to think about Adam's threat. I poured my entire being into this new project to give it meaning and a goal. I chose the name New Departure for the group because I wanted it to represent hope, and the chance of Clara and a few helpers assisted me in returning to work after overcoming adversity. We started to set up a hotline, support groups, and even a system for women in danger to stay safe in case of emergencies. While we were getting ready for the public launch of the association, I got a call from a woman named Sophie. She read my story in a magazine and got the courage to leave her abusive husband. Your story saved my life, she said. That voice was shaking with emotion. I didn't know how to get out of it, but reading what you went through, I knew I wasn't alone, and that these words touched me. For the first time, it deeply struck me that my story could truly make a difference. It wasn't just mine. The story had become a source of hope for other women. The day of launch for the new route finally came, and we picked the 11th arrondissement of Paris houses a comfortable room. There were media representatives, individuals from various groups, and even some politicians present. A crowd of people gathered in front of the microphone. Clara smiled at me with pride, and Master was there too. DuPont gave an encouraging nod, and I saw women whose faces I didn't know might have been there. They brought up the subject because they needed or wanted to help. I took a deep breath and began to talk a few months later. Long ago, I found myself at the brink of despair. The man I loved attempted to kill me, but I was already beyond repair. Despite feeling scared and without hope, I'm here not as a victim, but as a survivor. As I spoke, I could hear my own voice. As I talked, I thought about what I had been through and all the strong women I had met since then. Being strong, I talked about our plans for a fresh start and our goal to provide not only he has a safe place to stay and the tools he needs to rebuild his life. I end with a sense of quiet and loneliness, but together, we can break this silence. We can establish a network of assistance and support for each other, providing them with a fresh start. Those who need it. The cheers that followed were so loud that many stood up, with some even breaking down in tears. I witnessed women embracing men, and men nodding in agreement. With determination, a woman approached me as I was interacting with guests after the ceremony. She looked nervous. She said in a soft voice, "Your speech made me feel. See that I'm not the only one who can get out of this." I took her hands in mine. I could sense the intensity of their vibrations. "You are not alone, Leah. We are here to help. You've already taken the first step, which was the hardest, while I walked you through it." Clara told her to talk to her alone, and that's when I understood why I was fighting for Leah and Sophie. When I got home that night, I felt awful for all the women who needed hope and help. I didn't feel as heavy as I had in a long time. Adam's threat was still in the back of my mind, but she didn't hold me back anymore. I had a goal, a reason to keep fighting. The trial was coming up, and I knew it would be hard. But now that I wasn't alone, I had a fresh start. With all these brave women by my side, we were stronger than any danger as a group. That night, as I went to bed, some months ago, Hannah was pushed into the rough waters of the hedgehog. I thought of that Hannah. She had lived, she had fought, and now she was a new person. Despite being stronger and more durable, the fight was not yet over. For the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to the future with hope. I thought about what Adam could still try to do. I knew I would never be alone in front of him. I had found my voice, and I would use it for myself and everyone else who needed it. I couldn't speak yet because tomorrow was a new day and a new fight, but I was prepared to do so, to face it with more determination than ever in the weeks before the trial, as in between getting ready with Maître Jaunt, who is in charge of the association's new departure, and my lessons with therapist. Despite the incessant noise, I barely had time to breathe. When I got home from a meeting with volunteers one evening, I felt peace inside that I hadn't felt in a long time. I found an envelope from the association slid under my door. My heart sank when I knew it was Adam's writing, so I opened the package with shaking hands and pulled out a simple piece of paper. "Sarah, I know you think you have one, but remember that I know you better than anyone else. I know exactly how to beat anyone. The game isn't over, Adam." I dropped the letter, my whirling spirit. How did he manage to send it to me during his pre-trial detention? Was his detention merely a threat, or did he truly have a plan? I called Master DuPont and the cops right away. They took the danger seriously, tightening security around me as they investigated Adam's method. The next few days were filled with tension as I prepared to send my letter. I jumped at the smallest sound and checked the fear I had managed to overcome resurfaced on my shoulder, ready to ignite. But I found myself in the midst of a storm. I found an unexpected force in the women of New Start. The ones I had, people who helped and supported me, rallied. They sent me encouraging texts and took turns to support me, to go on trips with me and surround me with love and support. When the day of the trial finally came, the stone walls of the Paris courthouse looked like they could hold the weight of hundreds of years of justice and wrongdoing. I went there with Clara and Master DuPont. As soon as I walked into the courtroom, my heart started beating fast. Adam looked cool and collected as he sat there. I went to a simple business meeting, and our eyes met. I felt excited about going. The trial began, but this time, they were driven by something other than fear. The lawyers made their cases, the witnesses went through their lines, and I listened. I sometimes listen to the narrative of my life, experiencing both shock and anger. Other people have said that the disagreement turned my wedding into hell because more and more proof was building against Adam. A lot of pain and freedom. Then it was my turn to speak, and I took the lead. All eyes were on me, and I felt heavy. I took a deep breath and began to speak. I described in our meeting how our relationship began positively and then gradually deteriorated. I used insults to describe this. Tricks, constant fear, and finally this terrible day at the hedgehog. As I talked about waterfalls, my voice didn't shake. It was calm and clear. When I finished a big meal, I looked straight ahead and wouldn't look at Adam. The room went silent, and I could feel the emotion in the air. Adam's lawyer tried to make me feel unstable during the cross-examination, gave the impression that I was fabricating everything to retaliate against a husband I no longer loved. I liked it, but I was determined to stick to the truth of what I had seen and heard. The trial lasted for a few days. Every day was different, but every night I came home stronger. With the help of my friends and the women in the group, it was finally time for Adam's final pleas. A lawyer painted a picture of a good man who suffered from a terrible misunderstanding. On the other hand, Master DuPont told the story of a woman who had endured years of abuse with strength and feeling. She nearly died at the hands of her husband. The jury then took turns speaking for hours. I walked by them while they were waiting for a long time. Clara and the departing women surrounded me. When the judges finally came back, my heart felt like it was going to explode. The jury president rose to his feet and declared, "We, the members of the jury, declare there are suspicions that Adam Leaf hit his partner and attempted to kill someone." I felt Clara hug me, and I heard shouts of happiness all around me. With my eyes fixed on Adam, I saw her mask crack for the first time. The judge's sentence seemed to finally hit home for him. After spending years in prison, Adam gave me a final glance that left me perplexed. Was it anger, regret, or something else? Upon exiting the courtroom, a group of reporters and fans, including women I didn't know, kissed me and thanked me. Some people had tears in their eyes when they realized that my success was also theirs. That night I couldn't sleep. Still, adrenaline and a deep sense of release filled my veins. At first, the sensation was almost painful. I woke up in the morning and went out to my apartment patio to watch the sun rise over Paris. I inhaled deeply and relished the crisp morning air. I felt truly free for the first time since that day at the Hedgehog Falls. The days that followed were a blur. The media paid close attention to my story and my new start, gave talks, and appeared on TV shows to teach people the truth about the group of victims of domestic abuse grew quickly, and more women were calling us for help or to offer their support. So we opened up. There are now so-called job training programs in new reception centers to help women get back on their feet one day. About 6 months after the trial, I got a letter from a woman named Omalia. She told me that my sharing her story gave her the strength to leave her violent husband and file a complaint. "You showed me that it was," she wrote, "to escape the situation. You saved my life." These words moved me. I deeply understood that my pain had not been in vain. To speak through action, I was able to assist other women in breaking free from the 6-month cycle of violence. I went back to the Hedgehog Falls the day after the decision. This time, I was while standing by the rough water, with Clara and some women from the group I thought about. In the years since that terrible day, I had lived through the fall, the fear, the pain, the deception, and everything else. I fought my attacker and won, but more than that, I thought the experience had given me a way to to turn my pain into strength to help others. I pulled out of my bag a small box that held my alliance. I had kept it all safe. This time, they couldn't shake it off, but it was time to move on from the past. I made a sign and threw the box into the boiling water. I watched her go away. The current carried me away, symbolizing everything I had passed through and overcome. I smiled and turned to my friends. "Really over now?" As we left the room, I told them it was time to think about the future. I felt a deep sense of peace near the waterfalls. The journey was lengthy and challenging, but I had reached their goal. I was stronger and more tenacious, and I had found this important goal in my life. The game was over, and I had not only won, not for me, but for all the women who were still fighting. As long as there are women who need help, I will keep fighting. It is important to voice out and take action, as every life saved and every woman freed from abuse counts. There was a greater victory over those who believed they could silence us. The future appeared promising, and I was filled with optimism. I was ready to face it with my heart open and my head held high.